What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologists' claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today's video is from the line. We're going to be hearing from a caller that's decided to call in and try to prove either God to us or some other kind of crazy idea. So, if you want to fuck around and find out how crazy this call gets, then please stay tuned. We've got another theist calling in, Jackie, and I believe Jackie wants to make a case for accepting religion. I'm down for it.
Hello?
Hello, Jackie.
So yeah, I was just gonna make sure because I'm pretty sure there's a time delay on the call if I have that correct.
Yes, there is.
But basically, I guess so. Are you guys familiar with Dr. Jordan Peterson?
Yes.
So one of the things
Oh
Dr.
my
Jordan
God.
Peterson has. What was that?
I said, oh my God. Okay,
So
yes, please.
Dr. Jordan Peterson is a psychologist from Canada, and he has given lectures about religious ethics and philosophy. And I suppose the summary of his approach is that there are truths in the human experience which are part of our subconscious psyche, and you can say God is the moral force that all human beings, in some subconscious sense, strive towards. And the biblical stories, in a sense, represent, using Jungian terms, the archetypes that individuals strive to. And the biblical stories reflect aspects of truth, right? They're not literally true. That would actually be an understatement. They are like, there's like a meta truth there. And if that's the case, then what's wrong with accepting religion if it reflects meta truth?
He thinks that it's more true than what real things that exist in reality is what that means.
I was just wanting him to give his definition. Yeah, okay.
Am I wrong? Isn't that what you mean, Jackie?
I mean, God is your conscious. What else is there? What else can you describe your conscious other than God signaling to you, how to make a better world? Like Jordan Peterson talks about something like Cain and Abel, right? That reflects the truth of the human condition of jealousy and
that presumes that a God exists.
And the dragon of order, in a sense, is God's manifestation.
You have a presumption that God exists in the first place, and he manifests through what Jordan Peterson calls our deepest instinct, or our inner, I guess, how did you describe it? Inner psyche? I don't know. What kind of word salad did you use to describe it?
The subconscious, or the Jungian archetypes, right? Our collective unconscious rings of the metatruths of God's reflection, right? Don't wrestle with monsters lest you become a monster. Don't wrestle with the devil lest you become the devil.
Did you have to write this bullshit down in order to repeat it? I'm just kind of curious.
No, like the word Israel, the word for the Jewish people, Israel, is we who wrestle with God in the Bible. So in a sense, everyone wrestles with God, and the Jews who introduced religion wrestled with God.
No.
Jacob,
in the Bible, Jacob literally wrestled with God, had his dick grabbed by God, and then got renamed. Kind of like what happens in prison on occasion.
That in a sense reflects the meta truth of the human condition in trying to achieve a connection with God. Have you?
Do you think God lives inside? Jackie, do you think God lives inside everyone within their subconscious?
I believe God manifests his truth when human beings observe the laws around them and of human nature. And we know heaven.
Okay, so if an atheist is doing good things, does that mean that this atheist is manifesting God?
They may think they're an atheist, but if they're working towards a higher goal, they're arbitrating God's will into the world.
I feel like that there's a lot of presumption about this. So you've just ambiguously defined what God is, and now you're claiming some metaphysical shit is an expression of God without actually proving any of this shit is actually real.
Have you even listened to Jordan Peterson's Bible lectures?
Oh my
Yes?
God, I've listened to Jordan Peterson and I have to sit there and listen to it 2 or 3 times in order to understand the fucking word garbage that comes out of his mouth.
Jordan Peterson lost all credibility when he said that as a therapist, he is unable to use a person's correct pronouns because that was, I forget what kind of violation to him. But if
Well,
he
he
is
was standing up. He
unable
was
as a
standing up to the woke
therapist to
mob
use a
in
person's
Canada who was trying
correct
to legislate
pronouns, then
pronouns.
he has no business being a therapist.
Well, that's the sort of minus thing is he's fighting the woke mob in Canada who are trying to mandate some sort of forced.
The woke mob in Canada. The woke mob being the mob that's like, hey, can you just be respectful to other people and use their pronoun, their
Yeah.
preferred pronouns?
If,
Can you do
if, a
that?
ther-
And he's like,
if,
the woke mob. Oh no.
if a therapist is unable to be respectful of their patient, then he's got no business being a therapist.
But I have not heard an atheist like convincingly argue against Jordan Peterson's point about how God manifests in people's lives. Like I haven't heard.
I mean, I just did. There's no evidence to suggest that anything that you said is actually real in reality. And I get that you have this whole Platonic form kind of idea and how your Platonic forms are more real than real shit that exists in reality. I get that. I understand his philosophy. It's still all speculative bullshit and it's word salad dressed up to make it sound all fanciful and sophisticated. But really, it's Jordan Peterson saying, well, I believe in magic. Do you believe in magic? Oh, you don't believe in magic? Oh, well, you can think, right? Well, that's magic, manifest in reality.
No, but what is more real than the conditions described in the Bible?
What's more
A
real
lot
than
of
the
things,
what
because
conditions?
there's a lot of things in the Bibles that are just flat out
Like, for
wrong.
example, in
What?
the story of the fall of when Adam and Eve ate the serpent, that was an example where human beings were expressing the meta
Ate the
truth of
serpent?
chasing
Ate the serpent? Are you saying that Eve deep-throated the serpent?
No, I said the story in Adam and Eve where the serpent tempted them and they ate from the apple. That's the meta truth that human beings experience in reality.
Yes,
That
many
when you
women
try
have
and
been
chase,
by the one-eyed snake. That's
yeah,
true.
when you try and chase after utopia, which is what Eve was trying to do when eating from the fruit of knowledge. When you chase after utopia, you get a lot
Where
of
does
bad
it say
results.
that in the
You gotta
Bible that she was chasing after utopia? I just thought that the snake made a convincing argument that she wasn't going to die if she ate the fruit, and she didn't die. So, like, that's not chasing utopia.
What else is closer to utopia than immortality?
Well, I mean, I feel like she was just hungry.
Right, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Like what? Like, I mean, I don't think that I'm chasing utopia when I get a burrito.
No, but that doesn't give him. You're misunderstanding the meta truth that is expressed in the Bible. The
Jackie?
meta truth is
Jackie, I've heard at least 50 different meta-truths that are different interpretations of this story, and I've heard all kinds of different religions go in different directions as to what this story is supposed to mean. What makes you think that your meta-truth is better than somebody else's meta-truth when you're both deriving your meta-truths from the same story?
what other book has had a greater impact globally and in Western thought than the Bible?
I'm
in
not
terms of
asking
its
about a
reflections
different
of
book. I'm
humanity?
asking why your truth that you take from this book is better than somebody else's truth who's
Because,
taking
as
their
I
truth
said,
from the
like
same book.
if you're going to let me speak, you're going to let me speak, but don't interrupt me, please. So in the right in it,
No,
try to get
no, no, that was totally fucking rude as shit. Okay, listen, I've muted you, Jackie. I get it. We're trying to have a conversation and it's a little difficult over this, but we are in control of the show. If we need to interject something, we will. All right? So just keep that in mind. And I'm gonna unmute you and I'm gonna let you come back on and finish explaining your meta truth bullshit. Okay? There you
the
go.
meta truth that I see manifested in reality that the Bible presents in, for example, the story of Cain and Abel is how envy, which is what Cain had for Abel before he killed him, basically leads to suffering, and that envy leads to suffering in form of a murder. Or trying to chase utopia by eating from the fruit of immortality. Well, you saw that in Stalinist Russia, where they were trying to get a Marxist utopia, but it turned out to kill a lot of people. So, these are all archetypes that the Bible and moral lessons that the Bible is teaching people that has manifested and proven itself in reality. These are meta truths that the human condition experiences, and God is like I used to say like a dragon of order, trying to create the laws in which human beings inhabit in a good environment, and trying to get order in a world of chaos requires connecting to something deeper than you. That deeper thing can manifest itself in a lot of very powerful ways. And there have been studies like when people take psychedelics, they see images of things higher than them, and if they're religious, studies show they actually break drug addiction more often, for example. And
Okay, I'm sorry,
Okay,
but in
now
order to
answer the
take this
question.
argument seriously, in order for me to take this seriously, I really need to hear it in a Kermit the Frog voice. Is there any way that you can oblige us with a Kermit the Frog voice?
I mean, I can't really do a Muppet voice. Not really.
Why
I
don't
can't
you
really
just
do
answer
that.
Darn, I
my
was.
question?
Answer what question? I just gave you why those are true. Those are meta truths.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
you
you gave me
ambiguously
your meta
defined
truth,
God.
and I've heard at least 50 other meta truths about the same scripture passage. So why should I believe your meta truth and not somebody else's meta truth when both of you are taking your meta truths from the same passage?
Well, have those meta truths not reflected the human condition accurately?
Sure, they've reflected the human condition accurately.
So then they're true.
Sorry, my wife is wondering, are you on bath salts there, Jackie?
No?
Serious question. Okay,
Why
good.
would
Just
you
had to
assume
make
I'm on
sure.
bath salt?
I mean, you're speaking particularly crazy. I mean, you're ambiguously defining God into this realm of obscurity where God is literally anything. You're taking general thematic ideas from old ass stories and proclaiming that they are representations of things that God wants us to know, or God has somehow extracted this essence from the waters of
These are
chaos or
things
something.
that I've heard similarly from Jordan Peterson. I'm
Right. You're
So
also
what?
reading
like
off of a
16, so I'm
script
not
from
even
Here,
Jordan
legally allowed to
Peterson.
have drugs. I'm not even
is
legally
Jordan
allowed to take
Peterson
drugs.
God?
No?
Okay, so why should
Jordan
we
Peterson.
care what Jordan Peterson says?
But I'm saying it's not like I came up with these. I'm saying these came from a very smart man who has looked at the
So
human
what?
condition, who has. Well, I'm saying what I'm saying is these are manifestations in reality. Like, I don't see how you
I'm
can't understand the idea.
I can't understand why you're not eating my fucking word salad with ranch. Okay, so I can't wrap my mind around what a meta truth is. Could you kind of explain to me, like I'm 5, what a meta truth
Well,
is?
a meta-truth is a truth which is more true than true. So in a sense, a meta-truth reflects a condition of reality which is so universally applicable. It's compared like if you say 2 plus 2 is 4, you can say that's sort of a meta-truth because that's universally applicable. But like if you say a chair is brown, well, that only applies to that one chair. But every human society which has followed
Okay,
biblical
so
morality.
hold on. Okay, so I think of like truth values as a very binary option here. There's true, there's false. All right, this is like as true of a dichotomy as you can get. You're suggesting
Well,
that there's a
define true.
third category that's
But
truer
define
than
true.
true.
Well,
Jackie,
define
which
true.
is more true? 2 plus 2 is 4 or 2 plus 3 is 5? Which one is more true?
They're equally true.
Okay.
What would
So
be
how
an
can one
example of a
truth be
mathematical equation that
is more true than another one?
No, they're all equally true.
All right. So why do you think some truths are more true than other truths?
Because what I don't mean as in the other ones are not true. What I mean is they reflect a broader experience of the human condition, or a broader rule for how reality manifests. But you also have to define truth because, for example, I'm pretty sure Medard Boss believes, or it was either Ludwig Binswanger or Medard Boss. It was one of the phenomenologists defined truth in a more phenomenological way that human beings experience the world around them, but it's not coming
Okay.
quite off the top of my head.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I think roses are beautiful. That is a human experience. Is my thought that roses are beautiful more true than 2 + 2 = 4?
It is true to say roses are beautiful, and if that is the experience you inhabit, is as true as saying 2 + 2 = 4.
But
To
this
say
is a
you
human
believe
experience, so it must be a meta-truth. So roses must be absolute beautiful, and that must be more true than 2 + 2 = 4, because that's a meta-truth.
No, I don't. I
Can,
mean,
okay, let me, maybe I can ask this. Can you provide us with an example of something that's simply true, and then we've got the example of more true than true, which is, I guess,
well,
arithmetic.
no, it's not more. It's hard to quantify. I'm saying you can't really quantify truth. I'm saying it's more applicable.
I'm sorry. You literally said earlier in your definition of metatruth that it's more true than true. So I'm just
It's
asking you to
fantastical
give me
phrasing.
2 examples.
It's fantastical phrasing. It's not literally
God.
more true than true. It's fantastical phrasing.
Your English teacher fucking hated you in high school, didn't they?
I'm still in high school.
Oh, brother.
What?
That explains everything. We're talking to
I'm
a
16
child.
years old.
I think, yeah, we need to tone
You're
down the
how
language.
old?
We're talking to a child.
I'm 16
I'm sorry.
years
I did
old.
not realize that we were talking to a child.
Or
How old are you again?
He said 16.
16.
Oh, you're 16. I need to reel it back in then. Sorry.
Yeah.
But do you know who Soren Kierkegaard was?
Who?
Soren Kierkegaard.
Kierkegaard.
No.
What would you be your response to his argument for acceptance of faith called the leap of faith?
I would have to know what the argument is first.
I'm not really a Kierkegaard scholar, so it's harder for me to explain. I haven't read him. I've heard Jordan Peterson reference him. He was, I think it was before Nietzsche, although I might be wrong. But he was, one of the early existentialists, and he was, unlike Nietzsche, he was a Christian. But basically, his idea of the leap of faith, to my understanding, is that being itself. So, according to him, there's the aesthetic sphere, the ethical sphere, and the religious sphere. And that being in the religious sphere requires taking a step back from human rationality and sort of having a deep dive into an experience with the eternal, which is what the leap of faith is. But it's hard for me to describe because I'm not as knowledgeable about Kierkegaard, or I haven't heard as much about him as I heard of Peterson.
Okay.
I mean,
I have to admit, right now I'm a little unsure as to whether or not I should be talking to you, because I feel like maybe that's a bad idea for me to talk to you about this. But I am not. I'll say this: I'm not convinced by Jordan Peterson's ambiguous argument for God existing. It seems like Jordan Peterson wraps up his ideology in fancy words, and he convinces a lot of people about it, but it ultimately is just generically wrapping up God to represent things that he can latch onto, but that they're all speculatively claimed. Like there's no actual hard evidence of God being representative of things like in us or our consciousness or our instincts as being representations of God. What Jordan Peterson does is he takes these concepts and he redefines them in a way that makes them God, but that means that God can literally be anything. And when you ambiguously define things in that way, you essentially make communication pointless. And so that's why I'm not convinced of it. He's just redefining things so that he can call it God. And that's not evidence.
Jackie,
Okay.
if you don't mind, there's something I'd like to say. And that is, have you ever heard of Mark Driscoll or Wayne Grudem?
I've not heard. Well, I don't remember hearing of either of those two names.
Okay, that's okay. And I wouldn't necessarily expect you to, especially if you're not a Calvinist. But when I switched from Arminianism to Calvinism, one of the big draws for me was the pseudo-intellectualism, and particularly the pseudo-intellectualism of Mark Driscoll and Wayne Grudem, who are both very intelligent people and write very difficult books to read. I mean, you almost need a dictionary right next to you in order to read their books. And I read Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology, and I read a couple of Mark Driscoll's books, which ones I can't even recall off the top of my head. And I was convinced that this was a more real, a more correct theology, and that's why I switched to Calvinism. And I really feel like you are in the same place that I was when I switched from Arminianism to Calvinism, is you're getting sucked in by this pseudo-intellectualism, because that's exactly what Jordan Peterson is. He sounds smart. He sounds like he really knows what he's talking about. But when you dig in deep to what he really has to say, it all falls apart, as John and I were showing you with this whole metatruth thing. And I was trying to show you with the thing that I like roses. There's someone else that might hate roses, and their personal experience is that they think roses are ugly. And so my truth that roses are beautiful and that person's truth that roses are ugly, neither one of them is more true. They're just both our experiences. And so there really is no such thing as a meta truth. And I'd just like you to chew on that for a bit.
Okay. One more argument, and then we might want to wrap it up. Are either of you guys familiar with a more recent Christian theologian named William Lane Craig?
Oh, yeah. Low bar bill.
So William Lane
Low
Craig
bar
makes an
bill.
interesting argument for the existence of God that is a little bit different from Peterson's, because unlike Peterson, William Lane Craig doesn't necessarily come at it from a more psychological, phenomenological perspective, but from the Kalam Cosmological Argument, which is basically the idea that everything in reality that we've observed so far has cause, which caused it to happen. Therefore, the nature of reality and existence itself, that is to say the physical universe, had to have a cause, and that unmoved cause would be God, is I guess the rough summary I would give of that argument.
Okay, except you've assumed you've begged the question there, because the question was, does God exist? And your response was, everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Therefore God is the cause of the universe. There's nothing in that argument that says that God is the cause of the universe coming into being. The only thing that the Kalam addresses is that the universe had a cause. It has nothing to do with the existence or non-existence of a God.
At least in context of the heard William Lane Craig reference, it has to do with God being, I guess you could say, Aristotle's unmoved mover, which is a necessary contingent for the rest of existence in the universe.
Right. He makes that argument, but that's not part of the Kalam itself. That's a separate argument.
Right, yeah, I agree there, Godless Granny. And as far as the Kalam goes, even if we were to grant like the first premise and everything, you're making a logical leap there at the end when you say that cause is God. I mean, like, I can agree that this particular iteration of our universe inflated at one point, and therefore it quote unquote began to exist. So, I mean, even if I grant you that portion of it, you're making a leap that God is the only reason for that. I mean, we don't know what came before it. If we go with the assumption that absolutely nothing existed prior to the inflation of our universe, then there's no causal law in the first place to constrain existence to being that, everything that comes into existence has a cause. Like, that just simply doesn't exist at that point. So therefore a universe could pop into existence from nothing, because there's nothing to constrain reality in that way. So that's one particular argument that I've actually recently come to know and have been convinced by. That's why the Kalam cosmological argument isn't all that fantastic, because it makes a lot of assumptions. And at the very end of it, you have to make these logical leaps in order to connect it to a God, like in general, not only like a Yahweh, which is a more specific version of God, but just in general, a God creating, a creator God creating the universe. So you have to make a logical leap that says that. And I mean, the unmoved mover thing has been proven to be not indicative of reality as far as our reality goes, or our universe goes, because materials or things that are in motion are natural things, but things at rest are also just as natural. So there's no need for a prime mover in that situation. Like, there's nothing that needs to start the domino effect from that particular argument, at least, because both states are naturally occurring. So I mean, it's just the Kalam all around just is not impressive to me.
Jackie, do you know why we call William Lane Craig Low Bar Bill?
No.
Okay. There was somebody named Kyle that called in a question to him, and in his response to Kyle, he made the statement, far from raising the epistemic bar, when it comes to belief in God, I lower it. He then goes on to say, if there's one chance in a million that this is correct, I'm going to believe it. And that's part of the reason why we have a hard time taking William Lane Craig seriously, is because he says that his epistemology sets the standard of proof for whether or not God exists so low as to be, if there is just one chance in a million that he's correct, he's going to believe it. The other thing that he did that really shot his credibility is watch his conversation with Alex O'Connor on the slaughter of the Canaanite children. And he says that he defends divine command theory, that slaughtering Canaanite children is morally acceptable if God says to do it, which to me, that lacks all credibility. A God that can order the slaughter of children is not a moral God.
When it comes to biblical morality, you have to recognize that if God is the creator of everything, he can command his subjects to do whatever he wants. I guess you could say the flaw you're pointing out in the Kalam is that it only points to a cause, but not the cause of God, and that it's possible that because if nothing existed before the existence of the physical universe, there would be no law necessitating a first cause. Correct? Is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that's how the argument goes. If you have absolutely nothing, like, whatsoever, then there's no causal principle to constrain anything to require a cause for the beginning of the universe.
But then you'd have to. But then the question is, can something which exists come from something which doesn't exist?
If there's no, I mean, you're introducing a law. I mean, you're introducing some kind of concept to this absolute nothing, and you're constraining it. And so by de facto, you're automatically supposing a universe existing. And so, I mean, what I'm saying is absolutely nothing exists. There's no laws to constrain, like there's no logical impossibility in a universe popping into existence out of nothing, because there's nothing that says that there has to be something there.
But I don't believe it's possible for absolutely nothing to exist.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying whether or not, like, I'm not saying that actually happened. I'm just saying, like, even if we go back, like, to where nothing exists, you don't have anything to constrain it to require there to be something in order for something to come into existence. I don't know what happened before the inflation of our universe. I don't know if this is the first iteration of our universe. So, given that, All that I can know is that at one point in our past, our particular universe inflated, and that's all that we can know. What happened before that, what occurred before that, we just simply don't know. If it was absolutely nothing, then there's nothing to constrain it, to constrain reality from needing something to be there in order for our universe to inflate.
But I'm saying the idea of absolute nothing in reality, to me, that sounds incoherent.
Well, I
I don't
don't
see how it's
necessarily, we don't
incoherent.
necessarily say that there ever was a time when there was absolutely nothing.
I know,
I
I know.
don't
That's
think there
I'm,
was
I'm
ever a
saying that's
time
not
when
even a
there's nothing.
possibility. I'm saying there's a 0% chance probability that nothing ever, absolute nothing ever exists. Is what I'm saying.
How can you
Okay.
prove that?
It's not about proof. I'm just saying it's an incoherent logical possibility. As long as existence exists. For example, you said there would be no law saying that nothing can't, or something can't come from nothing in a world of absolute nothingness. But then you'd also have to say, well, then can't something come from nothing? Well, then you'd have to say it has the ability to create something
Okay.
from nothing. That's an
Okay,
active
Jackie.
proposition, not a negative
In
proposition.
your theology, Jackie, in your theology, what existed before God created the universe?
God.
Just in a spaceless, like I'm not understanding the whole spaceless, timeless thing. Like, if there is no space, if there is no time, where is God existing at exactly?
God is infinite.
You're
Where
still,
does the
I feel
infinity
like you're
fit?
still.
What do you say?
Where is the infinity?
The infinity just exists. I mean, I don't know
But
whether or not there was a
if there's
previous
no
universe.
space, then how can infinity fit in no space? You're talking about a logical inconsistency on my part with this whole nothing aspect. But then you're telling me that God doesn't need space to exist within, but at the same time, he's also infinite in some kind of way. I don't know how to conceptualize that. Like there's this seems to be like a logical contradiction here in your own hypothesis.
I mean, well, it's hard to explain. It's just God is not a physical entity.
Can God
Like
act in a
God,
physical world if he has no physical attributes?
God is all powerful, so he can. Yes, he can intervene in the physical world
How?
because he's all powerful.
You're defining the problem away. I mean, you're making the claim that he's all powerful and therefore he can do everything because he's all powerful.
Yes, that is what I'm claiming.
Okay, it's circular reasoning.
What do you mean circular reasoning?
God can do everything because he's all powerful. He can make the universe because he's all powerful. He's all powerful because I said so.
Well, yes, that's part of my theology. You were asking what my theology is. That's what my theology tells me.
Okay, so you've created God in your own image.
That is my understanding of the reality of existence.
Exactly. So you created the God.
Well, no, that's what I believe. God exists independent of my conscious. That's just me describing
He
the God that
exists
I
he
believe exists.
exists in your mind because that's the way you believe him to be.
Yes, but I believe he also exists outside of my mind.
Only because you believe that. I mean, if you quit believing that, would he continue to exist outside of your mind?
Yes, because well, at least according to my
How do
current
you know?
understanding. What do you mean? How do I know? That's what I believe.
How do you know God has any existence outside of your mind?
That's just what I believe. Uh,
Which
you want
is
me to show you
inside your
my mind?
mind.
My belief is inside my mind.
Right.
But what are you asking me?
How
I
do you
can't
know
figure
your
a
What?
math
God
equation.
exists anywhere outside of your mind?
What do you mean by no? I can't give you a math equation.
No. That's not what we're like.
Okay.
What evidence do you have that your God exists independent of you? Like like if I've got evidence that my wife exists independently of me because of, she has different financial things that are tagged to her name and her essence and everything like that. Like I could, if I wanted to, I could prove that she exists separate from me. So
I
what
can
can
also
you do
attest
that
to
for
she
God?
exists. I've met her.
Yeah.
Logically, I accept that an eternal being creating the laws of the universe and reality which we inhabit is the most likely explanation for the nature of our existence. So I can't prove it to you in a physical sense, like in a science experiment. But you know, I mean, take it or leave it. That's just the most logical explanation for the reality that
Let
we
me
inhabit.
I get you, Jackie. Let me propose this. Okay. In my mind, I'm believing right now in a snuggly puff that exists right next to me. Okay. It's a cuddly creature. It's kind of like a Pokemon. Um, and so yeah, well, yeah, not you, honey. You're not a snuggly puff. So I got a snuggly puff here, and I believe yes, you are snuggly, and I believe in that snuggly puff, but I can't produce any kind of physical evidence that that snuggly puff exists. So why, do you believe me when I say that this snuggly puff exists, like, and loves me, cares about what I do, and
Is the
can even
snuggly
get
puff
me
you're
into?
describing is it something that is it a physical or metaphysical entity?
It's. I'm just saying that I believe in this entity, and this entity,
Is it a is
calms
it a
me,
I'm asking
makes
is
me
it
feel good
physical or
about myself, and
metaphysical?
everything like that.
I'm
What?
asking if it's
What's your
physical
question?
or
It describes you
metaphysical.
completely, hun.
It's metaphysical.
Yeah.
No, I do not believe any metaphysical sniggly thing that you could call a jigglypuff or snigglypuff or whatever snugglypuff or whatever you said exists
Right.
Why not?
So
because there's no evidence that said metaphysical snugglypuff exists.
right.
Ta-da!
So
You've just
for
explained our
for your
position.
God, right? Apply that to your God. You believe in this God, and this God has metaphysical properties for you, and this God's a metaphysical being, and you can't provide evidence that this God exists. So it's kind of like, why should we believe in your metaphysical God?
Um, well, because the necessary contingent for the existence of our universe is an uncaused cause, or in my which I believe is the most logical explanation for our existence. So that's a
And
logical
that's my
argument, or
snuggly
an argument
puff.
from deduction.
That's my snuggly puff. My
So
snuggly puff did all.
your snuggly puff did what?
Created the universe.
Created the universe and everything.
No, I don't believe the snuggly puff created the universe, or I don't believe I would describe
What evidence
the
do you
eternal
have to
being as the
prove
snuggly
to
puff.
prove my belief wrong? It's a metaphysical being that created the universe and provides me with eternal salvation after I die. How can you prove me wrong about that if it's a metaphysical being that requires no evidence?
Because, well, if it doesn't have evidence, I don't, or it doesn't have a logical reason to believe it.
It has as much
There's
logical
no
reason
logical reason
as
to.
your God does.
No, because my God doesn't have all this extra baggage that comes with it. My God is just a necessary contingent for existence that had to eternally exist for everything else to come into existence. Right? It's the eternal being.
No, no,
Right?
no.
It's
I'm
the thing
I'm
that deserves the
defining my
shit value.
snuggly puff in the exact same way that you're defining your God right now. So I mean, like my none of that applies to my snuggly puff over here.
I mean but that goes against Occam's razor, right? Occam's razor says the most likely explanation is one with the, I'm pretty sure I don't know the exact phrasing, but it's something like the most likely explanation is one with the fewest leaps you have to make,
Assumptions.
something like that.
Yes.
That
It was
Hmm.
fewest assumptions. Yes, the idea of an
Hmm.
eternal
right.
God that doesn't have a physical form is much less carries with it much less baggage than a snuggly puff does. So it's closer to Occam's razor.
Okay,
How
okay,
not? My
but
snuggly puff is not corporeal. I mean, it's defined exactly the same way that you're defining God. So I don't see how it
Okay,
your
if you
complaint
call God
applies.
snuggly puffed and God, if you can call God snuggly puffed, you can do that. It's not snuggly puffed, but yes, you can call God whatever you want. You can call him Jim if you like. But if you're just defining God the same God that I do, then yes, we would believe the same thing. We just call it different things.
Oh no. My snuggly puff's much better than your God of the Bible, which I'm guessing is the one that you're going with here, since you invoked William Lane Craig. My snuggly puff is
I'll go with
far
the
better
Abrahamic
than
God.
your God. Huh?
I believe that the Abrahamic religions that presented themselves throughout the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, best represent the archetype of God that I believe is true.
okay.
So
Okay.
what does
Now
that
let's
what does that
go back a
what does,
minute to your Occam's razor. You were saying that by Occam's razor we should accept the premise that has the fewest assumptions. Now, assuming that there is a supernatural being for which we have no evidence that created the world through a mechanism for which we have no evidence, a mechanism that we cannot test, a mechanism that we have never seen again, that has a lot of baggage with it and a lot of assumptions. If we look at the universe coming into existence through a natural process, we don't know all of the ins and outs of this process. We do not know the exact mechanism of what caused the universe to begin to expand. But we do know that at some point, which we call the beginning of time, that time and space began to expand, and that was the beginning of the universe. This has far fewer assumptions than assuming that a supernatural being, poof, brought it into being. By Occam's razor, it
but
is the more logical
but it
choice.
but the God hypothesis explains what happened before the Big Bang happened,
No, it
and
doesn't.
whatever but it does explain that.
Well,
First of
it
all, it's logically
speculatively
impossible for
claims something.
anything to happen before the Big Bang, because that would be before time, and before time is an incoherent concept.
Well, God existed eternally, so he would have exist before the physical universe existed. Like, what, in your opinion, what existed before the Big Bang if it wasn't God?
We don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what do you accept
But
as
you
the
do you
closest
understand
to
how claiming that
reality?
God was there before our universe inflated, as you recognize that as a speculative claim?
It's a logical argument I'm making from deduction,
No,
right?
you're
So
not. I mean, there's
in
no
that,
logical deduction that gets you to a God existing. I mean, that's a possible answer, but it's not like, oh, unless you can prove me wrong, then God existed prior to the universe existing. That's not how anything works in logical argumentation. It's
what I'm
called a
saying is
presumption.
the law of the physical universe that I inhabit is everything which exists has a cause, and like I'm just using the cause
Well,
as
right.
the thing that happened before the
Let me
Big
pause
Bang.
you right there, Jackie. Let me pause you right there. Did do you recognize that the universe as you experience it started with the inflation of this universe?
Yeah,
Okay. How do you know the state of things prior to the inflation of our universe? Because you just said that, the causal principle is what we experience in this universe, but then you're shifting it and talking about what occurred prior to this universe. So, who's to say that causal principle existed prior to the universe's inflation?
because I haven't heard of another hypothesis which convinced me that there was some other way it could have come without the causal principle. Like I haven't heard of a convincing argument, which is why I'm asking you to present it, or convincing
Okay,
hypothesis rather.
how many other hypotheses have you read about and learned about?
Um, What was that again? Sorry, I was just hanging up on a call. What was
How
that?
many other hypotheses for the beginning of the universe have you read about?
Not many. I mean, I'm not really a big science guy, and I hear some
Okay,
astrophysics
and
books
I
in
get
there.
that. And some of them are very difficult to read. And I'm not a science person either, and I've had to take a couple cosmology papers that I've looked at and had to go to people who study cosmology and ask them to digest them and explain them to me at a level that I can understand. And so that's a perfectly acceptable answer. But before you can say for sure that it is a god, I think you need to at least look into what some of the other possibilities are.
And
And
what would your
we are going to need to jump off here because I mean we've been talking for about 45 minutes now, and we still got at least one more caller to get to. But I feel like maybe what you're not recognizing is the fact that you're just de facto assuming your position and are only willing to let go of it, like if I give you evidence of an alternate. But I think that what you need to do is shift your thinking around and be like, well, I do need evidence to accept an alternate conclusion about what happened prior to the inflation of the universe. But I also need to be asking, along with this, what evidence do I have of my preconceived notion about what existed prior to the universe, or prior to the inflation of our universe? And you would need to support that not with like some kind of logical deduction that is circular in nature like you've been providing us, but I feel like what you need to do is think about what actual evidence you have for a number of the assumptions that you have in your hypothesis, like the assumption that the causal principle transfers between our universe existing and prior to that. Also the assumptions of deities existing in a spaceless form, spaceless, timeless form for that matter, but also being infinite. Like there's just a lot of assumptions that you've kind of baked in and you automatically accepted as being true. But I think that you really need to refocus yourself and think, well, what evidence do I have that definitely suggests that those are the things that most likely existed? Not just that that's what I've already believed and that's what I've always been taught and all this other stuff. What actual evidence do you have that says that the causal principle needed to have existed prior to the inflation of this universe, as well as all the other stuff?
I also want to say real quick, Jackie, I think it was very brave of you to call in here. And at your age to have the I don't know the word, but the bravery to stand up and talk to two atheists that are a lot older than you are, that good on you, and you keep asking questions.
Okay.
I want to echo what Godless Granny just said. I definitely wouldn't have made the bath salts comment if I had known that you were under 18. So sorry about that there, Jackie.
Okay.
I do hope that you'll call in again with some more questions for other hosts that are more
Let them know that you're a minor.
Better at talking to children. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie, for calling in. I appreciate you.
Okay, and I appreciate your graciousness.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You have a good night and do call in again.
Okay. You too.
Bye. Well, heathens, that's going to be it for this call today. If you want more of this kind of content, you can hit up the links down in the description to go and subscribe to The Line here on YouTube. We're always producing great live content where we take callers from people. We're also adding new shows all the time. So please go down there, subscribe to The Line so that you can get more of this kind of content. I'm not sure if this was 20 seconds or anything like that, but yada, yada, yada. Jimmy, go fuck yourself.